So one of my students wrote this piece as a timed condition GCSE imaginative writing question for Edexcel. And she's not really used to writing stories, so it's probably the first story she'd ever written, and I think it's brilliant given that this is the first one. So it is a C grade, which, for some people is brilliant. That's like a pass grade, and you're happy with that. Some people are aiming for higher grades than that, and they hope to achieve more. So you can either take this as a starting point for how to begin with your writing, or you can take it as a good benchmark example if you're just aiming for that kind of C pass grade. So it's I think really creative, and it's really like a good example of how to sort of start by writing something that's very interesting and fun with lots of energy to it. It doesn't quite tick all of the boxes needed for a narrative writing piece, which is why it doesn't achieve a higher grade, but with a few practices and a few bits of feedback, this type of student that writes like this could easily achieve an A grade as well, just with a little bit of refinement. So we're going to go through the story and then the feedback, and we'll just have a look very quickly at this photo, which I actually took myself, of a very creepy cabin in the woods that I stayed at for a few days last year, and it was amazing. It's like an old hunting lodge. Famous painters stayed there, and is in the middle of this giant forest in the middle of nowhere. It looks creepy, but I like creepy places, and I just stayed there for a few days for my friend's birthday. And yeah, her story reminded me of this place I stayed, so I just kind of added that picture in there as a visual reminder. Some creative writing questions give you an image prompt, and they say write a story or description based on this image, so you can have that image in your mind as you read through the story. So yeah, I'm going to just scroll really slowly through the story, and as I scroll, you can kind of read it. You can feel free to pause if you need a bit more time to read as you go. And I want you to think yourself about what is good about this story and also what can be improved. Think about separating the really great things from the things that are a little bit less refined, that need some work. So we'll scroll through now, and then we'll discuss afterwards. Yeah, so hopefully you got a sense of how dramatic it is. It's very, very dramatic, and she's great at her atmosphere and her kind of feeling. I think my favorite thing about it is just like the beginning of each paragraph. I should not have done this, and then she keeps doing it anyway. It's so intriguing, and it really draws the reader in. So I should not have walked into the woods, and then a whole paragraph that explains that she did it anyway. I should not have followed the trail, but she did it anyway. So I feel like that's slightly overused maybe as a technique. We call that anaphora, where you begin a paragraph or a sentence with the same words, but you change the ending each time. So she uses anaphora really well. Maybe a little bit overuses it, but it's, such a nice narrative hook to draw us into the story, to make us think what's going on. There's also a lot of motifs that are really recognizable here. Like, she uses a ton of fairy tale imagery, and we feel like we almost know certain elements of what's going to happen before it happens because it's mapped onto fairy tales and stories that we're already familiar with. So that's nice because it's not just a random story from her head. She's drawing on things that she's personally read and experienced, and then putting those into her story. So that makes it a lot more powerful and effective. I think sometimes there's good dialogue as well, like a voice in my head screamed no, or when she knocks on the door, the voice says leave, the man says drink the soup and you'll feel better. I feel like the dialogue could be a lot stronger. Like, she could have full conversations with the character in the house, or she could even have a conversation with herself in her head. So it's good with narratives to also outline, bits of your passage that are dialogue, not only just descriptive paragraphs. So all of this is prose, like every single paragraph is just a description. Sometimes we have nice little short sentences or short paragraphs like this one, which is, a nice sort of rendering there of something. And the ending, I think because it was in time conditions, is just super rushed, and it feels like a little bit anticlimactic. Like, I think it could have a much stronger ending. The best way to do this is to plan. So if you plan your ending, you know where you're kind of ending up. Even if you're rushing a bit in time conditions, you can sort of achieve quite a powerful ending there. So I feel like it starts so powerfully, and it's really amazing, and then it has to rush the ending, and it sort of falls short a little bit at the end. The vocabulary as well, we could improve a little bit, but there is a lot of imagery, which is great. I like this. The silence seemed almost lifeless. No sounds of animals, no sounds of leaves rattling on the treetops, nothing. Really nice to build atmosphere. The imagery is kind of trying to contribute to an overall feeling. I like the simile that the trees are trying to grab her like the claws of a monster. There's a little bit cliche sometimes. My heart was beating fast. It's better to sort of render those things in a more personalized way. So don't try and just use standard story phrases for your story. Try and use your own personalized phrases. But yeah, I like the idea of the smell as well, kind of leading her to this place, and then the smell turns out to be the soup, and the soup is kind of magical. So in terms of the way that the narrative progresses and develops, I think it's really beautiful. And yeah, things like the walls were twisting like a Van Gogh painting when she's been, I don't know, cursed, or she's eaten poisoned soup or something like that is really nice. So this is my general feedback. The main thing I said to her was probably the amount of writing is minimal. Like, try and write more in time conditions. I think this was a 50-minute exam, so you should probably, it's difficult because it's typed, but if you're handwriting, you want to aim for about 3 pages of handwriting ideally. You can use something called a Freytag's pyramid structure to help you create this narrative structure that has a really powerful ending to it. And yeah, try and clean up the language, add interesting vocabulary, cut even entire sentences to make the writing clearer and more powerful. So the editing process is important for writing as well. It really helps your writing pop. So I write stories and poems and things, and my first version of anything I write is nowhere near as good as the final piece, because the editing stages are so crucial in terms of just making your writing a lot more powerful. Show, don't tell is another very important rule here. So if you tell something, you just say what happened. If you show something, you reveal it slowly. So show, don't tell is like a whole rule that we use when we're doing creative writing. If you're not sure what that is, look it up and make sure that you can do it yourself. And yeah, there's little bits of grammar as well that need a little bit of work. So it's a borderline B grade. It's kind of at the top of a C grade. It's kind of getting there up into that B. And with some refinement, this would easily have enough kind of depth and complexity to it as a concept to achieve an A or an A star grade. So yeah, really perfect, amazing piece of writing to start out with. Hopefully that's been useful for you. And if you like, as a task, you can take this image and try and write your own creepy little story about it too. So yeah, go to scribbly.com if you want more help with narrative writing and writing in general. We've got loads of courses on there. And yeah, hopefully this has been helpful for you, and see you guys soon in a future lesson.